Welcome to the South Kingstown Chamber Channel. I'm Clay Johnson with the Goddard School and a member of the South Kingstown Chamber of Commerce.
And I'm Michael Paolino with Edward Jones in the South Kingstown Chamber of Commerce as well. Today on the Chamber Channel, our featured topics are going to include the ARC SBA loans, and the Rhode Island has been seen from a national level. There's an article that Clay is going to talk about that's very interesting.
But first, I'd like to introduce today's guest for the show. It's David Nash from Engage Marketing. He's been a longtime supporter of Chambers of Commerce. Dave, tell us about yourself and what do you do with Engage Marketing?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Engage Marketing is a marketing communications company that helps companies differentiate themselves and then communicate that difference to their prospects. That's simple.
Do you call that branding, or what do you call it?
No, I would not call that branding. Branding involves an awful lot more than just that. But what's extremely important today in the tremendous choices that we have, consumers have in businesses, is that your business stands out in the marketplace, that it's dramatically different from what exists. And that's the first step that we do to help businesses differentiate themselves, stand out in that world of clutter. And then we say, okay, now that we have a good story to tell, who are we going to tell this story to?
Can you give us an example of the typical business that you work with?
Yeah. Let me give you a good example of differentiation. As you may know, I come from Coventry. And in Coventry, we have a Dunkin' Donuts and a Tim Hortons. Okay? Now, we've had a Honeydew, but they went out of business. And we've had 2 or 3 independent coffee shops that look just like Dunkin' Donuts, and they went out of business. I was reading the paper one day. It was around Christmas time, a couple of years ago, and it was a front page story, front page story, about a new coffee shop that opened on the east side of Providence called Blue State Coffee. Now, Blue State, Democrats, red states, Republicans. Right? So here, brilliantly located on the east side of Providence in a liberal community with Brown and RISD, is Blue State Coffee, whose tagline is drink coffee liberally.
Right.
And you can't get a seat in the place because they're so dramatically different than any other coffee shop around. Now, if you're George Bush, you may not want to stop in for a cup of coffee. But if you're a liberal thinking person on the east side, and that's mostly who's on the east side, that is absolutely the place to have coffee. Yeah. So they're thriving because they look different from any other coffee shop.
Excellent.
Okay. And it doesn't make any difference what your business is. You've got to be dramatically different than your competition. So that's what we help people do. Then we help take that story, interesting story now, and we make sure it's told to the right people, to that targeted, I call razor-thin targeted market that needs to hear that story.
Gotcha.
That's Engage Marketing.
So, what in your career has shaped your views in marketing? Can you give us an example of some things that have had a dramatic impact on your career as you've come along?
I think the key today, again, I'll go back, Mike, to this choice that we're dealing with all the time. I think the key word out there is caring. Companies that are built to serve, companies that understand that you must be serving community today. The consumers are in charge of the marketplace, not us. Consumers are in charge. So if you go back and say, who influenced that? I think mom influenced that. Okay, that's the way we were raised, to understand that we're in this world to serve people. Yeah. And when a company gets that, and I'll give you an example in a moment, when they get that, then they start to really thrive. There's a story, and this is I think so interesting, an old story, but still pertinent today and interesting, of a gentleman who went to Nordstrom's in Alaska, and he returned 2 snow tires. Now, the Nordstrom's employee manual has 1 sentence: use your own best discretion at all times. So when you go to a Nordstrom's clerk with a problem, they don't run around looking for management to discuss it. They make the decision. Well, the young woman who handled this tire exchange decided she would give him his money back for his 2 snow tires that he was returning. The interesting point was Nordstrom has never carried tires, but she gave him his money back. If you go to Google today and you Google the Nordstrom tire story, you will get 144,000 hits. That story has become just a legend, which has built the culture of Nordstrom's, or helped build the culture of Nordstrom's. Whatever she did was absolutely brilliant. Now, we have most business managers today say, what the heck are you giving money back on something we don't carry? And yet, This company's just has this remarkable legend of great culture and a company that's built to serve. All right? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And you brought up Google, and the internet's been around for decades, but it's really become commercialized in the last 10 years. How has marketing changed with the arrival of the internet?
Well, first of all, I think we have to go back and thank Al Gore for inventing that in 1994. But it's changed dramatically. It means that as entrepreneurs, we can go out and reach globally and reach markets that we could never reach before. Okay, and along with that, we have some exciting tools, communications tools like Facebook and Twitter, Google AdWords, the only marketing advertising vehicle in which we can go out with absolutely no risk and pay only for results. So we have wonderful tools. But Clay, there's a problem. The people that I talk to, certainly every week, that come to me because they're having problems with business. And the initial discussion happens about this wonderful technology, and it is wonderful. I don't mean to demean it in any way. But when I have the conversation with people as to what's the problem, what are we trying to solve, it always comes down to a foundation of 4 problems, whether they're retailers, local retailers, or the manufacturing plant, or whether they're internet-driven. There's 4 problems, and I call them the 4 cornerstones. They're not differentiated. Okay? There is more risk in being risky. I'm sorry, there's less risk in being risky than there is in being boring. All right? And they walk in and they're just another bakery or another hairdresser or whatever. They're boring. So a problem of differentiation. There's a problem that they don't have any identity. We have so many companies out there today that the name of their company is absolutely meaningless. Their strategy, it seems at times, is to confuse customers. Okay, they don't great names like Weight Watchers and Die Hard Battery and there's so many of them. There's dozens of them. But I run into CBS Corporation, ABC Corporation, whatever. Absolutely meaningless. So identity is a huge problem out there. So differentiation, identity. The next one is communication. We need to get companies to understand and be able to clearly identify their razor-thin target market. Who's your customer? And then discover the best and the most affordable way to go out to that customer and communicate your difference. Okay? Absolutely huge. And then those are 3 cornerstones. The final cornerstone is performance. We are moving from a service economy, in which most of us work in, all right, 3 of us work in. We're moving to an experience economy. The Disney World kind of economy, where the money is today. We go right up the street to Starbucks, and we don't get a cup of coffee. We buy an experience. Okay. An experience to put your feet up on the leather ottoman, have a conversation, and all that kind of stuff.
Tell me a little bit about the seminar that's coming up that you're hosting here at the South Kingstown Chamber.
I think I just gave you a segue to that. It's
Okay.
the 4 cornerstones of business.
Okay.
We're gonna spend 2 hours
Yep.
talking about how do you differentiate a business, how do you communicate that difference, how do you create a brand, an identity around your business, and good grief, how do you perform?
Fantastic.
Okay, those are the 4 steps, and we'll do that in about 2 hours to
Wow.
to tell that
And
story.
you're offering that free, and do you have the date and the time of that?
Oh, you had to ask. It's August 6th. It's August 6th. We have 2 programs. One of them is in the morning at 9 o'clock, and
Excellent.
the other one is repeated in the evening at 6 o'clock, trying to make it convenient on either side.
And can you give us a couple quick examples that'll tease people to join us during your seminar?
Well, I think the people that need to come, maybe perhaps not a tease, Clay, but the people that need to come are people that are understanding that they have to do something different than what they're doing. They have to do something that's going to drive in more customers to their business. Whether they're a retailer or manufacturer, internet business, we need more customers.
But I would guess there's people out there that are probably doing well that could probably still benefit.
Absolutely. Part of the problem in this whole world of differentiation that I've spoken about the last few moments is that every time you differentiate your company, your competition steals that idea. McDonald's was the first to have a drive-through. Well, now you can't succeed in fast food without a drive-through. So McDonald's is continually trying to recreate themselves. So I think even for the successful business who says, I am different, I think this kind of a seminar We're going to sit down and we're going to explain 11 different ways to differentiate. And to get you continually thinking about those means you're always a step ahead of the competition, which I think is really important. And we're going to talk about the most affordable and effective way to communicate your story. Mass media, for most businesses, not all, but mass media isn't working today. It's too costly, and it's not driving in the business. And I think a lot of people, Coca-Cola is realizing that as they just cut $10 million from their budget. So the question becomes, what is working? And we're going to talk about the ways to communicate that are working very effectively and extremely affordably.
Perfect. Thanks for coming by, Dave.
You're more than
And
welcome. Thanks for having me.
a reminder to everybody to call the Chamber at 783-2801 to reserve your space during the seminar August 6th.